Jonah Comstock, Editor-in-Chief of pharmaphorum. I'm at Bio 2024 in San Diego, and I'm joined by Steve Damon. Steve is the CEO of
Micron Biomedical.
Micron Biomedical, which is a medical device company kind of aiming to replace the injection with a tiny little button that you've got in your hand there.
That's exactly right. We're really moving forward now in clinical trials with what I call a button. What it really is this tiny little device right here. You put it on your wrist, you push a little button, click, you take it off, and you throw it away. You don't feel a thing. And what you've really done there is you've replaced injection. So imagine that instead of getting your COVID shot or your weight loss drug or whatever it is, you don't need to use a needle. You would actually just do what I just did. And that's how your drugs and your vaccines would be delivered in the future. And we're not just talking about a future, we're actually achieving it now. We're doing clinical trials. We have a lot of clinical data showing that this works in measles, rubella, in psoriasis, in seasonal flu. We're doing quite a lot of work. You can imagine that with something, this is very stable, thermally stable. So you can imagine that what we're improving is really the distribution of drugs in vaccines, which improves access. So if we had an epidemic or pandemic, you could put this in the mail, you could pick it up at your pharmacy, self-administer it, you could maybe avoid some of those long lines where we were getting injections, or if you typically have to go to a doctor to get a drug or something injected, you could, again, do this yourself. You'd still have to have a prescription, but you would be able to get this distributed and administered by yourself.
So that thing is very small. It's about the size of a dime. It's about as flat as a dime. Where does it even store the medicine?
On this side of the technology, you basically have very micro depots of drug or vaccine. And what you've done is you created those depots in a way that if you put it on your skin like I just did and you push down with your finger, those depots go into the intradermal part of your skin. Much like an injection would push the needle into your skin and then you'd pour the drug in, you push the drug inside. We're pushing it in a drier form, a thermally stable form, and once it goes into that skin, it dissolves automatically, and it's the same as having that injection.
And you can use this for anything?
We have limitations. For most vaccines, yes, we have limitations on the size of the dose. Some drugs, for example, an antibiotic requires quite a large dose, so we wouldn't use it for something like an antibiotic, but many of the drugs that are currently being used, so it would work just fine for, including the COVID stuff and all the things we're all familiar with these days.
So you're investigating it a lot in global health, right? And for potentially delivering drugs where the infrastructure and the supply chains aren't
Exactly.
good.
One of our most exciting projects is a measles rubella clinical trial in the Gambia. We received a grant from the Gates Foundation, and we studied and did clinical trials with children as young as 9 months who received their measles and rubella vaccine. Measles is still a leading cause of death. And that's because they're living in villages and places where they don't have access to physicians, refrigerators for the vaccine, and they're remote. So like you said, so we can't eradicate measles if you can't get to those places in the world that need to get their vaccine. So we were able to do a clinical trial there and had great success, showed better than or equal to results to the injections. And moms were available. They were holding their children at 9 months, and they were all very excited about the thing. Arguably, if you believe that group there was over 400 people in our trial, that group would have not then been vaccinated, that maybe we've already started to save some lives in just our clinical trials. We're hoping, but that's what happened. But that was a very successful phase 2 clinical trial done through a grant by the Gates Foundation.
So if all goes well and you get the data in phase 3 and more trials, how do you make a transition of this kind? Get people to sort of move away from something as, obviously not in every case, but something as sort of entrenched and traditional as injections. I mean, it seems like hard to execute a paradigm shift.
You're exactly right, because to our technology, we've developed it and it actually is working. When you do the phase 2 work and you have the same results or better, it's not like you're inventing a new drug. You don't really need that phase 3 data. It's still required, but it's working, so we know it's working. But really, one of the challenges that we think about every day is, okay, we know it works, but now we have to talk to the public about it. They're not used to something that they're used to a needle, but at the same time, that public, as you can imagine, is highly motivated not to have a needle injection, and especially parents when they're giving it to their children. We lead the world with pediatric applications, and so I think there will be a bit of a shift and a bit of a time to get confidence that it works, since you don't feel anything, and But another piece of that, in my mind, that will be helpful is that if I hand this to you and you do it to yourself, there's a little more confidence in the fact that you did it to yourself. I know when the person at the pharmacy is giving me my flu shot, and I kind of look away. I couldn't tell you whether that happened or not, especially if I didn't feel it.
Is it possible to mess it up? I mean, does it matter where on the body it goes?
The clinical trials we've done so far have all put it on the wrist just because that's simple and easy to get to. And you're not wearing it, so you don't need it, you can do it there. It doesn't technically, we could do it anywhere if we did the clinical trials, but wherever we do the clinical trials is how we'll commercialize it. Yeah.
But I mean, you say the wrist, but like, it's not like, oh, it's got to be
no.
a hair over this way, a hair over that way.
Frankly, we use this again because it's easy and it's also strong. There's a bony area there, so it actually is easier. Imagine if you put it in a fattier place, you're going to push a little harder to get it to go. So it just makes it simpler for the patient. Can it be messed up? Well, an injection can be messed up, but honestly, we've done a lot of work with self-administration already in clinical trials and shown that it's very simple to use. You're either going to use it yourself, a physician could apply it easily, a pharmacist could apply it, or you would have a caregiver apply it to an elderly patient and or to your young children.
How easy is it to make? Is there any manufacturing challenges?
I've been doing drug delivery technologies, working on these things for 30 years, and it's not just about coming up with this great new idea. It's much more than that. If you invent a technology like we did, you then have to invent the way to manufacture it, because there's no such thing like there's a machine to manufacture. So we've done that too. That's being scaled up right now for all our projects, including the measles, rubella, and some of the other work we're doing, and we'll hope to be running those commercial lines in the near future.
Well, it's very exciting. It sounds like it could be a huge business if it takes off. I mean, you've got the patent on this too, right?
We do have patents, and we protect ourselves very well, but I'm fine with the fact that other people will come chasing this space, and there'll be there's plenty for everybody. My dream is that this will replace quite a lot of injections, whether it be Micron's technology or somebody else who comes close to it. I'm fine with that. There's just so much opportunity to do a better job and really improve access to drugs and vaccines, and that's what it's really about. So, yeah, I'm excited.
Fantastic. Anything else you're thinking about? How's the conference been for you so far?
Conference is good. We have a lot of attention. One of our lead investors is the U.S. government through a fund called Global Health Investment Corporation. So we're constantly getting attention from different national security, national health security projects. Imagine that if, our U.S. government is always thinking about what's next around you've already started to read about things like the new flus, the pandemics and stuff. And so they're thinking about that, but they have to take those projects and then they have to stockpile them and get prepared. I think there was an announcement today about 5 million of the bird flu stuff being stockpiled. One of the other advantages that we bring, besides the fact that you can get it out quickly, distribute it quickly, administer it, is that we're thermally stable. So when you're stockpiling something like this, it actually is going to last a lot longer. And it's going to be less expensive for the government to stockpile versus having to replace something that needs refrigeration and doesn't last as long. These have been created to be very, very stable and long lasting.
How long do they last?
Depends on the product. We've done studies with seasonal flu for 2 years.
Wow.
Yeah. So it just depends though. It depends on what you're delivering, and each one will have its own set of metrics and criteria.
Fascinating, Steve. Thanks so much for chatting with me. Really interesting stuff, and I'll be looking forward to seeing where this goes.
Well, thanks for taking the time to learn. Very nice. Thank you.
Great.